Hello, guys. I'm doing a pre-record this week because I am at Cannes Lions for work. And work is, well, I run a production company, so I do a lot around advertising, I do a lot around online, and I do a lot around commercials and stuff like that. So I'm here in that capacity, but I'm always looking out for EV charging stories and interesting stuff going on in the EV charging space. So Cannes Lions is a huge advertising event. Cannes Lions 2026 is even bigger than ever. There are literally hundreds of the platforms here, all along the Croisette, showing their wares, trying to get people to spend more money on their platform and use their advertising tools, many of which are now AI and so on. So it's an interesting time to be here. Watching what happens, and there are literally thousands of marketers all over the place, and they all come together for 1 week in June when it's phenomenal. It's relevant to one of today's stories because I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on with advertising around the EV charging space, because I think a lot of the charging companies are really missing the trick on that. So we've got 4 stories and an EV charging bootcamp episode for you today. First up is the government is quietly preparing to soften the ZEV mandate. And this has been quite a big story this week. And EVA England isn't happy about it. They've written directly to the Transport Secretary. Then there's a new fully costed plan that could bring EV leasing down to £77 a month for households who need it most. That's relevant because in France, where I am at the moment, social leasing is a really big deal. And they have a very successful opportunity for people who on lower incomes to lease EVs here, and we're trying to mirror it in the UK, I hope. We're also on episode 2 of the EV Charging Bootcamp series. Today it's connectors, Type 2, CCS and CHAdeMO, fully explained properly so you never stand at a charge confused again. And I want to talk to you about why UK EV charging companies are some of the worst marketers in the country. Yes, even with me sat here in Cannes, surrounded by the best in the business, doing exactly the opposite. And we'll close out with some genuinely good news on the money side of public charging, proof that this industry can actually turn a profit. Let's get into it. Okay, so is the government quietly giving up on the ZEV mandate? Yes, and EVA England is furious about it. Reports suggest that ministers are preparing to soften the ZEV mandate targets after pressure from manufacturers. And in an open letter sent this week, EVA England's chief executive has told the Transport Secretary that backing off now will hurt buyer confidence at exactly the wrong moment. This landed in my inbox literally yesterday. I'll just put a graphic up quickly so you can see that as well. It's about as fresh as this show gets. EVA England, that's the official body representing UK EV drivers, wrote directly to Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, warning that if the government waters down the ZEV mandate again, it sends exactly the wrong signal to drivers, manufacturers, and investors. Quick reminder on what the ZEV mandate actually does, because it's easy to lose track on the detail. It's a manufacturer obligation, not a driver obligation. It requires every car maker selling in the UK to ensure a set percentage of their annual new car sales are zero emission. For 2026, that target sits at 28%. Miss it, and manufacturers face financial penalties. That mechanism is what's been pushing supply onto UK forecourts, whether or not underlying demand has fully caught up yet. There's a second, arguably bigger ask buried in that same letter. Scrap the EVED pay per mile road charge entirely, or at the very least, delay it to 2030. Quick reminder on what EVED actually is too, because I get asked this constantly. It's a proposed per mile charge on electric vehicles from 2028, designed to replace the fuel duty that EV drivers currently don't pay. In principle, fine. Petrol and diesel drivers have always paid per mile, though fuel duty baked into the pump price. So there's a genuine fairness about argument for EVs eventually contributing something too. Nobody serious is arguing EVs should pay nothing forever. But the way it's currently designed asks drivers to estimate and prepay their mileage up front rather than billing on what you've actually driven. EVA England's own survey found 76% of drivers earning under £26,000 are worried about that upfront cost, compared with 56% of the highest earners. That's not a minor design quibble buried in a consultation document. That's the policy landing hardest on exactly the household the EV transition most needs to bring along if it's going to reach beyond early adopters. And we're at crunch stage now as they shift out of the early adopters and into mainstream buyers. Here's the number from that survey that should worry everyone in this industry, me included. The proportion of drivers who recommend an EV to someone else has dropped from 82% to 56% in the space of roughly a year. That's not a rounding error. That's a serious confidence wobble. And it's happening at the exact moment ministers are reportedly thinking about easing off the mandate that's supposed to be driving supply into forecourts in the first place. EVA England's chief executive, Vicky Edmonds, put it bluntly in the front of the Transport Select Committee earlier this year. Right now, we're creating a two-tier transition. Roughly a quarter of new car sales are electric, but only 5.5% of the entire car park on UK roads. The people getting into EVs love them, but they're disproportionately higher income and are far more likely to have a driveway than the average household. There's a wider point here too, beyond just this one letter. The ZEV mandate has effectively been the single biggest driver of EV supply into UK forecourts over the past few years, regardless of how consumer demand has tracked alongside it. Soften that obligation and you don't just remove a regulatory stick, you remove the main reason manufacturers have been prioritising UK electric vehicle stock over other markets in the first place. There's a supply side risk hiding behind what sounds like a fairly dry policy tweak. My verdict on this is you don't fix a confidence problem by adding more uncertainty at the top of it. If the government genuinely wants to keep people choosing electric, the single worst possible move right now is a double whammy of a softer mandate signalling less commitment, paired with a confusing new tax that lands hardest on the people least able to absorb it. Pick a lane and stick to it. This is critical in the EV transition, I think, and it really needs some thought, because at the moment, driver worry dropping a percentage like that and the amount that will recommend a car is very serious. Anyway, on to the next story, which is, could you really lease an EV for £77 a month? So this is an incredible rate, and this is what's been going on in France. So I thought it was interesting to just talk about it. Possibly under a new proposal, but not yet, and not from a showroom, not for £77 a month. Transport and Environment and EVA England want government to fund a subsidised social leasing scheme, bringing EV leases down from today's cheapest at £141 a month to as little as £77 a month for lower income households, paid for by a new levy on large SUVs. This sits right alongside the alongside the story we've just covered. So stay with me. The same report that's worried about EVED fairness also sets out how to fix the other side of the affordability problem, actually getting lower income households into an EV in the first place. The maths is straightforward. Today, the cheapest EV lease in the UK sits at around £141 a month. The proposal is to bring that down to £77 a month for households who qualify. Think universal credit recipients, key workers, or anyone below a set income threshold, on an 8-year secured deal that bundles an insurance and charging credit. Where does the money come from? A large vehicle levy on a bigger, heavier petrol and diesel SUVs, plus a slice of the existing electric car grant budget. So this isn't new government spending out of thin air. It's redirecting money that's currently skewed towards people who can already afford to switch. And that's the actual problem this is trying to solve. Right now, 75 to 80% of all UK drivers buy used, but fewer than 25% of EV drivers do the same. Most EV incentives, the grant, salary sacrifice, are built for people buying new with a driveway on a decent salary. That leaves out the 40% of UK households without off-street parking entirely. This is exactly the same structural unfairness I bang on about with home versus public charging. Same pattern here. The people who benefit the most from going electric are the ones currently locked out of the deals that make it affordable. Salary sacrifice schemes, for instance, currently average around £42,691 in salary for the typical participant. They simply don't work for hourly paid staff, the self-employed, or anyone on 0 hours contracts, which rules out a huge chunk of the workforce by design and not by accident. There's a bundling element worth flagging too. The proposal doesn't just talk about the lease payment in isolation. It floats an all-in-one package combining the vehicle insurance and charging credit into a single predictable monthly cost. For someone who's never budgeted for an EV before, that single number simplicity matters almost as much as the headline price. Nobody wants 3 separate bills and a spreadsheet just to know to know what driving electric actually costs them each month. There's also a scrappage angle in the wider report. Trading in an older petrol or diesel car for a discount applied straight onto a new EV lease, aimed specifically at drivers currently in older, more polluting vehicles who would otherwise have no realistic route into electric at all. Worth setting this against today's actual market too, while we're on it. Even outside any social leasing schemes, EV lease prices have moved meaningfully this year. Deals like the Renault 4 from around £166 a month, or the BYD Dolphin Surf and Vauxhall Corsa Electric, both coming in at under £300 a month thanks to the electric car grant eligibility. The market's already moving in the right direction. This proposal is about reaching the households that today's market still leaves behind entirely. I think it's a sensible, fully costed proposal, not wishful thinking. Whether ministers act on it is another matter. But if you want to know what fixing the EV transition for everyone, not just driver owners, actually looks like on paper, this is it. Okay, we're on to EV charging bootcamp, guys. So I'm going to just do a little bit on the difference between Type 2, CCS and CHAdeMO. Type 2 is what you'll use for slower AC charging at home and at most public AC points. CCS is the combined connector for rapid DC charging. It's a Type 2 socket with 2 extra DC pins built in underneath. You see them in there at the bottom, and they make those big charging plugs. And it's now the standard in almost every new EV sold in the UK. CHAdeMO is an older Japanese DC standard, mainly found on used Nissan Leafs, and it's gradually being phased out. Welcome to week 2 of EV Charging Bootcamp. Last week, we covered AC versus DC charging. This week, we're covering the actual plugs because half the confusion people have at a charge point isn't about electricity. It's about which hole the cable goes in. Excuse me. Let's start with Type 2, sometimes called the Menikes plug. This is the standard AC connector across the UK and Europe. 7 pins. It's what's on your home wall box. It's on most workplace chargers, charging overnight. Sorry, it's on most workplace chargers, and it's on the majority of public AC charging points too. If you're charging overnight on your driveway, this is what you're using, and it supports both single-phase charging around 7.4 kilowatts and 3-phase up to 22 kilowatts where that's available. Worth a quick mention of Type 1 here too, even though you'll rarely meet it now. It's an older 5-pin AC connector, mostly found on a handful of early Nissan Leaf imports and similar older models. If you've got one of those, you need a Type 1 to Type 2 cable to access the modern public AC network. But for the vast majority of you watching, this simply won't apply. Now, CCS stands for Combined Charging System. The clever bit is right there in the name. Take a look at a CCS plug and you'll see it is basically a Type 2 connector with 2 big extra pins bolted on underneath. Those 2 extra pins carry DC power, direct current, straight into the battery, bypassing your car's onboard charger entirely. That's what lets you add real range in minutes rather than hours. The single inlet design is genuinely neat engineering. Your car only needs one socket to handle both slow AC charging and at-home rapid DC charging on a motorway. Plug a Type 2 cable into the top section for home charging. The DC pins just sit there unused. Pull up to a rapid charger and the full CCS connector engages both sections at once. CCS now supports up to 350 kilowatts commercially, with even faster speeds demonstrated in the lab, and it's been the legally mandated standard for new public DC chargers across Europe since 2017, with the UK following the same direction. One thing worth knowing if you're buying a used, Tesla used to run its own proprietary plug in some markets, not anymore. Every Tesla supercharger in the UK now uses standard CCS, and current Tesla models sold here use CCS too. No adapters needed, and the supercharger network is now open to any car with a CCS inlet, not just Teslas. Last one, CHAdeMO. This is an older DC rapid charging standard mainly found on the older Nissan Leaf and some early Mitsubishi models, like the original Outlander PHEV. Unlike CCS, it doesn't combine AC and DC into one inlet. So a CHAdeMO car actually has 2 separate sockets entirely, a Type 2 for home AC charging and a separate round CHAdeMO plug for rapid charging. It's a declining standard. It now represents under 30% of connectors across European networks and under 15% of newly installed fast chargers. Even Nissan's own newer models, including the upcoming 3rd generation Leaf, have moved to CCS. If you're buying a used CHAdeMO car today, it'll still work fine on the network, but it's worth knowing the charger options around you will keep shrinking over time. So plan longer journeys with that in mind. You often find that there are only a few CHAdeMO connectors when you turn up at a charging hub. So do bear it in mind because they are being phased out. Quick word on cables too, since this trips people up. If your home wall box is untethered, that means no cable is permanently attached, you'll need to buy your own Type 2 to Type 2 cable. That's the single most commonly bought EV charging cable in the UK. Public rapid and ultra rapid CCS and CHAdeMO chargers, on the other hand, come with the cable already tethered to the unit, so you never need to carry your own for those. So the practical takeaway, if your car was registered after about 2018, you've almost certainly got Type 2 for home charging and CCS for rapid public charging. That single combination covers nearly the entire UK public network end to end. Older Leaf owners on CHAdeMO still perfectly fine today, just worth planning ahead a little more on longer trips as that network gradually shrinks. Connector confusion is one of the easiest EV's anxieties to solve, and most modern buyers never need to think about it again after today. Next week, episode 3, we're moving from plugs to kilowatts versus kilowatt hours, and why mixing those two up is the single most common mistake new EV owners make. The charging plug infrastructure vibe has been chaos. It's been so confusing. I had a Nissan Leaf. It was using CHAdeMO for direct fast charging. Type 1 to Type 2, CHAdeMO made no sense to me when I came back into looking at EVs. I sold that car in 2016. When I came back looking at it for EV Charging Bootcamp 2 years ago, I started wondering what the heck was going on, which is why I've started doing stuff around EV Charging Bootcamp, because I think that there's lots and lots of confusion out there for the public. No one is telling you what to do about charging plugs, which charging plugs you need, what's tethered, what's level 1, what's level 2, what's Type 1, what's Type 2. The Tesla chargers have been all over the place. So it's great that they're, at least they're standardizing CCS now. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about EV charging companies and their marketing tactics, because I'm really shocked at how badly EV charging companies are managing their customer base, really. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about them. Why are EV charging companies so bad at marketing? Because most of them are still thinking like billboard advertisers in a world that's moved to social. I'm filing this from Cannes Lions, the biggest advertising festival on the planet, and EV charging brands are barely in the conversation here. While the audience they actually need is forming opinions about public charging on TikTok and Instagram, not on a roadside sign. This week I'm at Cannes Lions, and thousands of marketeers and the best creative work in the world being awarded prizes on stage every single evening. It's been a genuinely useful week to think about how badly UK EV charging networks are doing this by comparison. Here's the number that sums it up. One major UK charging network, proper infrastructure, 1,300 plus locations, thousands of charge points across supermarkets, councils, TfL roads, a single contract alone covering 4,000 plus charge points for one council, has 84 followers on Instagram. 84. For a network at that scale of infrastructure, that's not a quiet social account. That's basically nobody. And it's not for lack of budget. This is a certified B Corp company with £65 million plus raised in funding behind it. And it's not isolated. Look at how these companies actually spend their marketing budget. Instavolt, genuinely good operator, 99.8% uptime, best customer service rating outside of Tesla. Last year submitted a planning application for a non-functional advertising turbine at one of their super hubs, purely to draw attention to poor roadside signage. It got rejected by the local council. That's the industry's idea of a marketing campaign in 2026. A static structure asking the government to put up better signs, rather than a single piece of content explaining to a nervous first-time buyer what charging actually feels like. Meanwhile, the audience these companies most need, drivers without driveways, 40% of UK households who do most of or all of their charging in public, are forming their entire opinion of public charging reliability from short-form video, not from a billboard, not from a static charger graphic with a QR code nobody scans in a car park in a supermarket. This isn't a dig for the sake of it. It's the single biggest commercial gap I see in this entire industry. These companies have built genuinely excellent hardware. The reliability numbers are real. The The investment is real. The B Corp credentials are real. What's missing is anyone showing up where the actual FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt about public charging gets formed and spread amongst people who haven't switched yet. That's not a CanLion stage. That's a vertical video at eye level, filmed on a phone, posted by someone the audience actually trusts. And it's worth saying, this is exactly the gap independent media like us exists to fill. We're not paid by any charging networks to say any of this, which is precisely why you can trust it, why we do it when we do. The EV charging industry has spent 5 years winning the infrastructure argument and almost entirely ignoring the trust argument. And trust gets built where people actually scroll, not where they drive past at 60 miles per hour. Keep an eye on what your audience are engaging with. Start talking to them. Understand that the conversation happening online is huge. There is mass engagement around EVs, especially through short form video, and start engaging with it. Don't just push out static media ads using a paid campaign that no one wants to look at. All right, enough of a rant. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to do a quick closer on this as well. Is EV charging actually a profitable business yet? Let me just go back to full screen on this so I can see you guys, or you can see me. Probably don't want to, but there we go. Is EV charging actually a profitable business yet? For at least one major UK network, yes, GridServe. Actually, I have got the numbers here, and let me just share them. Sorry about that. I'm just going to switch up. I will get better over time. Bear with me. I will get better at this. There we go. For at least one major UK network, yes, GridServe has just reported its first ever positive group EBITDA, with charging network revenue up 45% year on year to £64 million in 2025 and 99% network availability across 200 plus sites. Proof that large scale public charging can now be commercially viable, not just subsidized infrastructure. Nice bit of symmetry to close on, actually, given what we just covered. GridServe reported this week that its charging network revenue hit £64 million in 2025, up 45% year on year, and delivered 26 million in network EBITDA, a 40% margin. At group level, the business turned EBITDA positive for the first time ever under new chief executive Daniel Kunkel, who joined from Shell and Ubertricity back in March 2025. Over 3 million charging sessions completed in the year, 99% network availability across more than 200 sites, and a 4.2 Trustpilot score ahead of every major competitor. Revenue has grown at a compound annual rate of 55% since 2023. They're adding 500 plus ultra rapid chargers this year and opening a new electric forecourt at Markham Vale on the M1 this summer, their 5th forecourt site. They're not stopping at passenger cars either. GridServe opened the UK's first public charging hubs for electric HGVs earlier this year, backed by Department for Transport funding through the Electric Freightway programme, a genuinely difficult segment to decarbonise and one most networks aren't even attempting yet. So the commercial case for public charging infrastructure is no longer theoretical. It's printing real numbers now, which makes the marketing point from our last story even sharper. The hardware works, the unit economics work, the reliability is genuinely there. The only thing that's missing is anyone outside actually knowing that it exists. There's word of mouth going on, but you've got to get your messaging out, guys. Okay, Q&A. Will the £77 social lease actually happen, or is it just a wish list? It's a fully costed proposal from Transport and Environment and EVA England. And the fund, it's a fully costed, not government policy yet. The funding mechanism, a large vehicle levy on SUVs, has been tested with EVA England members and modelled by Cambridge Econometrics. Whether ministers adopt it depends on the upcoming public charging and tax review expected later this year. Worth saying, proposals like this don't always go anywhere, but this one's got more behind it than most. It's been independently modelled, tested with real EV owners, and time to land right alongside the government's own review into charging costs. That's a far stronger starting point than most policy wish lists ever get. Should I worry about the EVED if I'm leasing rather than buying? Leasing doesn't exempt you. EVED would apply to any electric vehicle on the road from 2028, regardless of how you acquired it. The current concern is the upfront mileage payment model, which EVA England wants redesigned to charge based on actual mileage instead. If you're on a typical 3 or 4 year lease right now, you'd be inside that EVD window before your contract ends. So it's worth keeping half an eye on this rather than assuming it's someone else's problem to worry about. Question 3. Is CCS definitely going to be the standard long term, or could something else replace it? And I think this is key because you've been through loads and loads of different charging options, and it'd be good to know that CCS will become a standard so that you can future-proof at least what you're buying. CCS is now the established standard across the UK and Europe and shows no signs of being replaced. It already supports up to 350 kilowatt commercially with higher speeds demonstrated in testing. There's plenty of headroom for faster charging without needing a new connector type. Even Tesla switching its UK superchargers over to CCS tells you everything about which way this is settled. When one major holdout standardizes, that's about as done a deal as this industry gets. Question 4. If charging networks are bad at social media, does that affect reliability or pricing? No direct link. A network's marketing presence doesn't affect how its hardware performs, but it does affect what you believe about reliability before you've used it. Real-world reliability tends to be better than the public perception, precisely because that perception is shaped by old complaints recirculating rather than current performance. The gap between perception and reality is exactly why we built the council charging checker and the club in the first place. Independent, up-to-date information fills the space these companies are currently leaving empty. Question 5. Does grid serves profitability mean charging prices are about to drop? Not necessarily in the short term. Profitability at scale tends to fund expansion and reliability investment first, not immediate price cuts. Longer term, more competition between profitable networks is the most realistic path to lower public charging prices. Keep an eye on what the smaller, less profitable networks do in response over the next year or two. That's usually where genuine price competition actually shows up first, not from the market leader. Okay, that's the show. Quick reminder while I'm out here in Cannes, if today's EV charging marketing rant struck a nerve, the Primetime EV Club is the bit we actually built to fix the bottom of that funnel. Feel free to join primetimeev.com/club. Cheapest public charging rates every month, the best lease deals we can find, and a weekly digest with no algorithm standing between us and you. If you've got a charging connector horror story of your own after today's bootcamp episode, drop it over to me. They shape what we cover next, so let us know at club@primetimeev.com or leave comments for us. And keep an eye out for our shorts as we continue to try and uncover what's going on in the charging world. Next week, EV Charging Bootcamp episode 3, kilowatts versus kilowatt hour, sorted out properly. Full show on YouTube, podcasts, Spotify, Apple and Amazon now. I'm Danny. This has been Primetime EV Live. See you next week. Have a good weekend, guys. Hope you haven't been too hot.